Hey guys, what's going on? Today we are back with Chris Chan, and we're going to be talking about Chris and art. First, as usual, we will start with a quote. My art style, I feel, is one that would be typically mistaken as childlike, yet there is an elegance that gives it simplicity and appealing charm. This is a style that needs not be overthought as it is typically to the point. I mean, he's not wrong about it being to the point, but he's also wrong, but he is wrong about it being mistaken as childlike. Art has been and always will be Chris's selling point. Chris has been involved with some form of art or another throughout his life. He has taken numerous art and design classes in high school, and he holds a degree in computer-aided drafting and design. But despite his extensive education in the visual arts and relative lack of other discernible skills, his style is quite unique, to say the least, or to be nice. Ever since the very day Jason Kendrick Howell found out about Chris's creation of Sonichu, many people have taken interest in Chris because of his infamously bad artwork. Ironically, his crude creative abilities are what made him stand out as an artist. Sonichu wouldn't be Sonichu without Chris's art. Encouraging Chris to produce more of it remains a popular objective among trolls and weens. My mind is a blank. January 2015. It's very odd looking. He sucks at drawing humans. How Chris sees his self-portraits. Yeah, I could even see it being all messy like that. Before we get started with today's critique, okay, let's see what this has to say. It could be easy to simply write off Chris as a bad artist without asking why, but of course, visual art is subjective. There are a multitude of reasons why someone might not like a particular work, and there are bound to be people who will like it. Different styles suit different artists and viewers, and realism isn't exactly the gold standard of good art. The fact that people commission Chris is proof that he isn't objectively a failed artist. After all, he sold more art than Van Gogh ever did in his lifetime. Chris is no naive artist. He took art classes throughout his schooling. He is most likely familiar with the process of artistic critiques in an academic setting. This article will reflect that process. Instead of outright praising or bashing Chris's art, this critique will offer constructive criticism. It will examine strong and weak points of Chris's art in an objective, taste-neutral manner, and it will examine all media, but place special emphasis on its most proficient medium, drawing. This article will also consider context of Chris's art. Finally, it will consider ways he's improved his craft, aspects that can be improved, and techniques he is outright unwilling to improve. I will say, even though I think Chris is a bad artist, he does his hedgehogs, like the Sonichus themselves, they look good. Decent to good. He can at least draw those fine. It's just that when he draws humans, animals, or anything else is terrible. So there's my opinion. Weak points. Exercise of skills and improvement in craft. Chris does not seem to consider his artistic skill in need of revision. He is always fully satisfied by his first attempt at the drawing he makes. Naturally, being an artist of that caliber, Chris takes it upon himself to criticize the art that his true and loyal fan base sent to him, and is quick to point out the myriad of flaws in each work, which is very strange because I remember he used to criticize Ivy all the time, and her drawings were like 100 times better than his. Like, they actually looked really professional. His looked like shit. Anyway, Chris has said he spends an hour at most drawing a comic page and about half an hour coloring it. He does not seem to be aware of the fact that producing the kind of high quality artwork that fans expect in a good comic strip is very labor intensive and it can easily take hours, sometimes days, even with professional software programs like Photoshop. He also doesn't seem to understand or care that any good artist will draw a scene multiple times before they publish it, especially if there are mistakes. In pretty much any episode of Sonichu, you will be sure to find at least one mistake. Chris isn't made that he refuses to redo or simply colors over. One good example is the scene from Chris and Ivy going to a hotel for hanky panky. If you look at the scene, you can see multiple mistakes that any artist would have seen as a reason to redo the picture. Chris started to draw his balls via tracing, but decided they didn't like the proportions that presented. So he decided to keep the start of the trace and just add some speed lines. If you look at the picture of Ivy, you will see that Chris messed up a bit around her face, but decided to, instead of redoing it, he'd just color over it. He also messed up a bit of her right breast. He drew one too small and decided to make it bigger by just adding another curved line. At times, he would expand Sonichu's stories in summary form on Wikipedia, a medium better equipped to keep up with his racing, easily distracted imagination. Everything he says or writes, he considers being part of his comics continuity, partly because it is easier to record these euphoric and fleeting bouts of inspiration as they occur, rather than days, weeks, months, or even years in comic form. I can kind of attest to that. Like, you'll always have different ideas for your work, like as a writer, me personally. And you'll always have ideas for your work, and you always just want to keep it on hand, like just in case you find inspiration, like do something with it sometime. I got plenty of them for like Attack on Titan and Fairy Tail, but you know, I'm stuck writing other things, so like, it's best to just keep it on the back burner. Chris's art has improved in recent years compared to the original Sonichu Zero cover to his latest covers. The amount in which he's improved, though, is up for debate. I mean, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a big improvement, but I guess you can say he kind of improved. Choices of materials and technology. Chris believes that his so-called hand-drawn style is superior to art produced by any other means. This is due to Chris's hatred to change what he has already learned in his belief as a consequence of his ego. That is his method. Is that his method is the best by virtue of being his. I could also say that might be autism, because autism, like, you know, you don't like change either. And I don't think it's because of it could be because of his ego, but I could also say it's because of autism. Like, once you learn something, like, I'm autistic, so once I learn something, it's very hard for me to do it any other way. Like, I taught myself how to type. Like, so if I learned another way, like, I probably wouldn't really, you know, take that way and just continue to do my way. Obviously, Chris's skills cannot compensate for the poor materials he uses. He does his work a disservice by using tools that are the cheapest available: copy paper, Pento, RSVP, ballpoint pens, and Crayola washable markers. These happen to be the tools he has used since childhood. Far from archival quality, his art has sometimes shown signs of wrinkling as soon as it's been finished. Chris has defended his practice of rampant text line as a way to save marker ink. When Chris wants to alter a panel but does not want to put in the effort to redraw the entire page, his method to fix it is to draw a piece on another page, cut it out, glue it over the original drawing. This can be seen in revisions to Sonichu 15. When Chris has claimed at various times to use Adobe Photoshop to create his characters and edit his comics, he will only ever be seen using Adobe Photo Deluxe, with which he created his slanderous head swap of Clyde's buddy Matt. This is in spite of the fact that Photo Deluxe is intended for scanning and touching up photographs, and Photoshop, which Chris claims to own, would be better suited for the kind of general purpose image editing and head swapping that Chris does. In addition, Photo Deluxe is a fossil of a program that hasn't been supported by Adobe since 2002. Chris' claim in Mailbag 3 that he uses a past version of Photoshop could imply that he is confusing Photo Deluxe for a part of the Photoshop line, or that if he really does use Photoshop, the revision he owns is just as woefully out of date as his ancient Photo Deluxe program. Those are the markers that Chris uses. Very good. Chris's font choice was Comic Sans, a font almost universally condemned for being overused, childish, and ugly. Serious designers generally only use it as a last resort or for ironic effect, since better handwritten fonts are available for purchase. However, starting from Sonichu 12-9 onward, he switched to Proxima Nova. I personally just use Times New Roman. Just, you know, it's just easier, I guess, and it looks decent too. Like, it's not eye-popping, but, you know, it's easy to read. Drawing techniques. Chris has never even learned to hold a pen correctly. Instead of holding the front of the pen with his thumb and forefinger, he draws with his index finger sticking out and bent around the pen. Give this a try and see how long it takes for you to get carpal tunnel. In Quick Hand Drawn Original 2009, Live Drawing Stream 2017, Chris demonstrated his drawing technique on video. During 2019, Chris hampered his ability further by wearing gym gloves while drawing. I don't want to deal with this constant pencil sharpening and all that trash. Chris giving one of the reasons for why he uses a pen for line art. And there's strange pen grips. And there's the strange pen grip that he uses. Very weird. Strange pen grips can be corrected with the assistance of school teachers. Chris slept through these lessons. He has admitted to sleeping through classes, so while most artists will produce multiple sketch versions of a single drawing, often layered one on top of another, Chris is so confident in his innate artistic ability that his first step in a page of Sonichu is drawing the final line art in pen before coloring it in with Crayola markers. If he makes a mistake, he shrugs it off and continues. There's no post-processing beyond adding text to word balloons with MS Paint Photo Deluxe. Attempts to inform him that digital coloring is more efficient and far less expensive than wasting gallons of marker ink filling it in monocolor backgrounds have failed. Visual style and more artistic fundamentals. Sonichu has kind of a kitty art style, which I guess was your point. I thought you meant it as an avant-garde thing to make a statement like ironically bad, said Jackie. And there's wearing gym gloves while drawing. Again, weird. For the comics, Chris attempted realism for work in oil pastel, charcoal, and graphite, presumably for art classes in school. The results can be seen in the gallery below. While he did spend some time in high school taking art classes, most professional artists heavily study artistic fundamentals before venturing off into the territory of stylization. Without knowing how things appear in reality, it is difficult to distort properties to an aesthetically pleasing effect. Chris trusts in his abilities yet lacks proficiency in the most important fundamentals. This overconfidence results in the Sonichu comics looking they are drawn by a grade schooler. Nice arms you got there, Chris. Yeah, those are some big muscles you got there, Chris. Chris started out with a cartoony style for the comic book, full technique consistent with early efforts at drawing by small children. Things changed as Sonic got into anime and manga, or things changed as Chris got into anime and manga. Why did I say Sonic? And sought to emulate them to impress his gal pal at the time, Megan Schroeder. Like many amateur Western artists, he copies only the surface elements of the anime art style. Big eyes, pentagonal heads, speed lines, emotions. These elements were simply laid over his original style with no adjustment. It did nothing to improve the quality of his work. I'd argue it honestly took away from it. Because like when you add when you just plaster something over to like something else that is completely different, it makes it look even worse. Like, because I remember seeing like some of his like weird like the blush lines and the anime eyes like he'd put it in like his Western style, and it's so weird looking. Like it looks even weirder than his usual art. So yeah, I can totally see what they're trying to say here. Chris has no understanding of classical anatomy, proportion, and finger drawing, or even basic form. His characters are drawn using simple shapes, colored in outlines without any shading ever, and even so, he is unable to keep the shapes consistent to any degree. These shapes rarely have any form at all, leading to characters having a cardboard cutout quality to them. Head-on body with a slightly turned head, though he lacks the skills to make even decent simple poses. Chris has the balls to attempt foreshortening on occasion with disastrous results. I have no idea what that means, but it's foreshortening. Foreshortening refers to the technique of depicting an object or human body in a picture so as to produce an illusion of projection or extension in space. Okay, draw your own conclusions there. Characters have no set proportions, limbs morph, heads change size, and faces become unrecognizable. It is only by the color scheme that you are able to guess which character is what. For example, in the opening of Sonichu 11, the children tend to noticeably get deformed in a different manner in each panel, despite the fact that they're drawn as just an oval for the head, a rectangle for the body, and smaller ovals in the forms of arms and legs. Just to be sure we know who's who, a job that is taken care of by the artwork in any normal comic, Chris sometimes relies on labeling characters with text and arrows. Beyond his differently colored eyes and Sonichu medallion, no two Chris's have ever looked alike, or even remotely resembled the actual Chris. The character sizes are also inconsistent, which is strange considering most of the characters appear to be the same size. In most drawings where Sonichu is carrying Roshu seems to shrink. Finer details of human anatomy have long escaped him because Chris never draws women with pronounced hips. The results tend to resemble children or men, such as with the character Lovely Weather, with unfortunate implications in either case. Chris also doesn't seem to realize that drawing techniques that work in other media might not work in cartoons. For example, he sometimes draws himself with almond-shaped eyes. While no real person's eyelids are perfectly circular like a cartoon character, cartoons generally reserve non-circular eyes for Asian characters. Despite boasting that his drawings of perspective viewpoints are surpassive due to his training in CAD, Chris constantly fails at perspective. With objects implied to be far away depicted too large, there is evidence in his many vehicle designs where the front is usually a direct frontal 90-degree view, regardless of the view angle of other sides. This inability to demonstrate parallel lines renders the car distorted. The lack of any concept of shading only further destroys any semblance of perspective. Legs that are implied to be bent forward at the knee only end up looking shorter. Possibly the worst offender in Chris's constant omission of backgrounds. Yeah, I have noticed that his backgrounds are either they either don't look too good, they're either just one color, or they're non-existent. That's how I've noticed his backgrounds. Most scenes happen only on the white backdrop of the paper. Readers are apparently supposed to infer what the background looks like based on context, similar to some daily newspaper comic strip. Thus, simply drawing a wide-angle shot of the scenery as the first, usually transitional panel in a scene would suffice. Combined with his inability to make a proper layout, many action scenes end up becoming a jumble of characters moving around without regards to sequence. The reason he does this is probably the same as the reason why he texts well so often, to save marker ink, meaning he's lazy. Incidentally, the proper use of white space and the conservation of painted space is a key element in East Asian art, but despite his anime obsession, he is unlikely to have heard of this. A related phenomenon is simply drawing characters as floating disembodied heads. The Deus Ex Machina exposition machine is the biggest victim of this. Once again, Chris couldn't bother to draw a full body, thus combining all known forms of marker and conservation. Some pages are just literally a bunch of talking heads speaking walls of text. He does this a lot with Magic-chan, I've noticed. Chris owns at least one book about drawing manga, as seen in My Half of a Whole New World for Casey. The book it itself covers everything to do with portraying couples, including images of couples in bed making love. Whether Chris bought it to better draw out his delusional fantasies or for more material to masturbate to isn't known. It's probably a little bit of both, mostly the masturbating thing. But either way, the book taught him nothing. Try and work out what is meant to be happening here. Okay. Moment of sanity. Mwahahaha, mwahahaha, mwahahaha. Rose Chu got fat. Somebody's laughing evilly. Rose Chu falls on Sonichu and Sonichu dies. There. This woman has 3 elbows. Yeah. Don't know who that is and don't care. Character design. See also written characterization. Yeah, Chris sucks at writing, drawing people. See, that's it. That's supposed to be Chris. A large portion of the Sonichu cast is clearly derivative of existing characters. In addition to the obvious Sonic the Hedgehog recolors, Chris has left the designs from any anime, video games, or even Western animation he is fond of, with no regard for visual consistency. Beyond that, he doesn't even bother trying to design better clothing for his characters. Most of them wear stereotypical basic clothing, and Chris himself wears his usual clown shirts and pants, with the sole exception of Meg Chan, every female that shows up in his comics wears high-heeled dress shoes. Even when the source of Chris's plagiarism is readily apparent, these lifts can still add up to less than the sum of their parts. Inspired by the fusion in characters of Dragon Ball Z and God of War, Colossal Chan looks more like a hobo than a fusion of Chris and Chris Chan Sonichu, though clearly his own effort to design baby Pokemon Sonny and Rosie look more unnerving than adorable. Yeah, his baby shit looks so awful. Something's not right with this picture. Yeah, that person's pointing with their middle finger, I want to say. In his hasteness to draw pornography of himself and Ivy, Chris seems to have forgotten that wrists and forearms are incapable of twisting in such a way without causing serious and extremely painful dislocations and injuries. Chris doesn't care about that. He's about to get laid. Fan service. I am not a gory artist. Just accept the fan service of panty shots and get over yourselves. Yeah, okay. We'll see in issue 10, Chris. Fan service is a term used to describe something that is meant to tease or please the audience. It can refer to any content seen as an effort to appease the desire of fans, but for the sake of this section is used primarily to describe scenes of a sexually titillating nature. Since its discovery by the internet, Chris has inserted increasingly large amounts of fan service into the initially tame Sonichu in an effort to assert heterosexuality of himself and his characters. The range of fan service in Sonichu includes panty shots, rose shoe stripping, camel toe indentations, even a full sex scene followed by 4 pages of text and diagrams describing Sonichu and Rose Shoe's sexual anatomy. And he said these comics were meant for kids. Multiple times, he said. Due to its lack of artistic faculties, much of Chris's depictions of sexuality are highly unsettling for most readers. Any attempt to add sexy material comes across as Chris's own wish fulfillment or self-interest rather than any attempts by Chris to please his audience. Well, yeah, it's just basically the dialogue is alone enough to prove that. While the point of fan service is to hint at sexuality in an otherwise clean work meant for general audiences, Sonichu's sexual content hides nothing and disturbs many, despite the fact that Chris has always viewed Sonichu as a comic intended for children. Chris tried to justify putting panty shots in the children's comic by saying, children will likely be seeing the same things in real life, so mellow out and let them learn a bit and further educate the children with discussions. Chris is an expert at proportion, as you can see with Sonichu growing to, I guess, a giant. So that is, we're going to stop there. And later, we're going to talk about some strong points. Yes, there are actually strong points to his art, and apparently, and we're going to go into his media, into other media he does, and like his history, all that crap. So stay with me next time because we will be getting into all that, and I hope you return one day we can continue this journey together.